The freight ship descended toward Nexus Prime, with the smooth precision of old machinery that knew its job well. Daewon sat in the pilot's seat, watching the massive station grow larger in his viewport. The station looked like a steel flower floating in the darkness, its petals made of docking bays and habitat rings. He had been flying routes like this for 5 years now, ever since he left the military. The work was simple and quiet, which was exactly what he wanted. His communication panel beeped. A green light indicated clearance for docking bay 17. Daewon guided the ship through the bay doors with practiced ease. The magnetic locks engaged with a solid thunk that he felt through his boots. He powered down the engines and stood, stretching muscles that had been sitting for too long. The cargo hold was full of construction equipment bound for the expansion project on the station's western ring. It would take the dock workers about 3 hours to unload everything. Daewon grabbed his travel bag and made his way through the airlock. The station's artificial gravity felt slightly heavier than his ship's, but he adjusted quickly. The docking bay smelled like metal and recycled air, the same as every station he had visited. A cargo supervisor with a datapad glanced at him and nodded. No words needed. Daewon handed over the manifest on his own pad, received confirmation and walked toward the main corridor. Nexus Prime was bigger than most trading stations. It served as a neutral meeting ground for dozens of alien species. The corridors were wide enough to accommodate beings twice as tall as humans and half as tall. Daewon walked past a group of Quellans, insectoid creatures with 4 arms and crystalline eyes. They clicked to each other in their language, barely noticing him. Further down, a massive creature with gray skin and tusks lumbered past, forcing everyone to move aside. His sister had sent him a message 3 days ago. Hana was working on the station as a xenobiologist, studying how different species adapted to shared environments. She had been excited about something, though she had not explained what in her message. She had simply asked him to visit when he was in the sector. Daewon had changed his route to make it happen. It had been 4 months since he had seen her. He found a public terminal and checked the station directory. Hana's lab was in the science wing, section 12. It would take him 20 minutes to walk there through the central hub. Daewon shouldered his bag and started walking. The central hub was the heart of the station, a massive open area with shops, restaurants, and gathering spaces. The ceiling arched high above, projecting a hologram of a blue sky with white clouds. It was meant to make organic species feel more comfortable, though Daewon found it strange to see a sky indoors. As he walked through the hub, he noticed a large crowd gathering near the central plaza. Voices echoed off the walls, mixing languages he recognized and many he did not. Curiosity pulled him toward the edge of the crowd. He could see a raised platform where several beings stood. One was a Quellan wearing official robes, probably a station administrator. Next to her stood something Daewon had only seen in military briefings, a Krell. The creature stood over 8 feet tall, its body covered in dark green scales that looked like natural armor. Its head was reptilian with sharp angles and cold yellow eyes. When it moved, muscles rippled under the scales like cables of steel. The Krell's hands ended in claws that could probably tear through metal. This was a warrior caste member, the kind that served as soldiers and enforcers for their species. The Quellan administrator was speaking. Her voice came through translator speakers around the plaza. The Galactic Council has gathered here to discuss expanded integration protocols. Many species have concerns about newer members of our community. A human man in a security uniform stood near the platform. Daewon recognized the patches. Station Security Chief. The man looked uncomfortable, as various alien species made statements about territorial agreements and trade regulations. Most of the discussion went over Daewon's head. He was about to leave when the Krell stepped forward. "I will speak plainly," the Krell said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. Humans are soft skins. They have no claws, no natural armor, no strength worth mentioning. They survived on their world through luck and simple tools. Now they believe they belong among true predators. The Krell's mouth pulled back in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. They are prey species that learn to use fire. Nothing more. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some aliens made sounds that might have been agreement. Others seemed uncertain. Daewon felt his jaw tighten, but he remained still. Getting angry would prove nothing. A young woman pushed through the crowd toward the platform. Daewon recognized his sister immediately. Hana's face was flushed with anger. "That's not true," she called out. Humans survived because we adapted. We learned. We worked together. Those are strengths too. The Krell looked down at her the way someone might look at an insect. You prove my point, small one. You argue with words because you have nothing else. In the wild, words mean nothing. Strength is all that matters. The Quellan administrator tried to restore order, but other species began debating among themselves. Daewon watched his sister's shoulders tighten with frustration. He understood her anger. He had felt the same thing during his military service when alien mercenaries dismissed human soldiers. But he had also learned that some people needed to see proof rather than hear arguments. The administrator finally managed to quiet the crowd. The council recognizes these tensions. Therefore, we propose a traditional solution. The trials of worth will be held in 5 days. Any species that wishes to demonstrate their capabilities may volunteer. Combat trials, strategy challenges, and survival tests will be available. The Krell crossed his massive arms. I challenge any human to face me in the arena. Let us see if your adaptability helps you when a real predator is hunting you. Laughter came from several directions. The security chief looked worried. Hana's face went pale. Daewon watched the Krell's confident stance, the casual way he dismissed an entire species. He thought about his sister's research and dedication. He thought about every human on the station who would have to live with the shame if no one answered. The crowd began to disperse. The Krell turned away, clearly not expecting a response. Daewon made a mental note to find Hana later. He also made a note to learn more about the arena and what materials were allowed in the trials. His military training had taught him many things, but the most important lesson was this. Every creature, no matter how strong, had weaknesses. You just needed to find them and be patient enough to exploit them. He continued walking toward the science wing, his mind already working through possibilities. Daewon found Hana in her laboratory 2 hours later. The room was filled with containment units holding samples from various worlds. She sat at a workstation, staring at a screen without really seeing it. When the door opened, she looked up and her expression shifted from frustration to relief. Daewon, she said, standing quickly and crossing the room to embrace him. I am glad you came. Your message said it was important, he replied, returning the hug briefly before stepping back. He was never comfortable with long displays of affection. I saw what happened in the plaza. Hana's jaw tightened. That arrogant creature. His name is Vex. He has been saying things like that since the council delegates arrived 3 days ago. Other species laugh along with him. They think humans are weak because we do not have scales or claws. Daewon set his bag down and leaned against a workstation. What exactly are the trials of worth? Ancient tradition, Hana explained, pulling up information on her screen. When species first met in this sector thousands of years ago, there were many conflicts. Instead of wars, they created the trials. Each species demonstrates what makes them strong. It is supposed to build respect and understanding. But it is really just combat, Daewon said. Not always. There are strategy challenges and survival tests too. But yes, the combat trials get the most attention. Hana pulled up footage from previous trials. On the screen, various alien creatures fought in a massive biodome. Some battles were quick and brutal. Others were longer, testing endurance and tactics. The Krell always volunteer for combat. They have won the last 8 trials. Daewon watched the footage carefully. Vex appeared in several recordings, moving with terrifying speed and power. His claws tore through artificial barriers like paper. When he struck opponents, they went down hard and did not get up quickly. The Krell fought with pure aggression, overwhelming his enemies before they could think. No human has ever accepted their challenge, Hana said quietly. Everyone knows it would be suicide. Taemin arrived at the laboratory an hour later. The security chief was a thin man with gray at his temples and tired eyes. He nodded to Daewon. Hana said you might be considering something stupid. Not stupid, Daewon said. Just necessary. It is the same thing in this case. Taemin pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. I have been station security chief for 6 years. I have seen 3 humans seriously injured trying to prove themselves to aliens who did not care. The galaxy is not fair, Daewon. Sometimes you have to accept that. And sometimes you have to show people they are wrong, Daewon replied. Taemin sighed. The Krell are apex predators. Vex is a warrior caste member with 40 years of combat training. His bones are reinforced with natural calcium deposits that make them nearly unbreakable. His claws can pierce most body armor. He has a healing factor that closes minor wounds in hours. You would be fighting a creature designed by evolution to kill. Humans were designed by evolution to survive, Daewon said calmly. That is different, but it counts too. Hana had been quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up. If you are serious about this, then we need to prepare properly. Taemin, what are the trial rules? The security chief looked between them and seemed to realize the decision was already made. Fine, but I am going on record as opposing this. He pulled out his data pad. Rules are simple. Both fighters enter the arena biodome at dawn. Victory is by surrender or incapacitation. Lethal force is discouraged but permitted if necessary. Each fighter can bring basic supplies, water, food, clothing appropriate for the environment. No weapons, but you can use materials found in the arena. No outside assistance once the trial begins. What is the environment? Daewon asked. The arena is a jungle biodome covering 50 square kilometers. There is varied terrain including water features, cliffs, caves, and dense vegetation. Temperature is controlled to match a standard tropical environment. Day and night cycles are accelerated, 12 hours each. Daewon nodded slowly, already forming plans. I need 3 days to prepare. You have 5 days until the trial, Taemin said. Registration closes tomorrow at noon. Then I will register in the morning. Daewon stood up. Hana, I need everything you know about Krell biology. Weaknesses, limitations, anything that might help. His sister's eyes were worried, but she nodded. I will compile everything I have. But Daewon, you need to understand what you are facing. The Krell are not just strong. They are efficient killers. Vex has fought in real wars. He has killed people. So have I, Daewon said quietly. The next morning, Daewon went to the registration office. The clerk was a small alien with purple skin and 3 eyes. It looked surprised when Daewon requested to enter the combat trial against Vex. You're human, it said. Unnecessarily, yes. The Krell warrior Vex has issued a challenge to your species. I know. I am accepting. The clerk's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. I must confirm you understand the risks. Serious injury is possible. Death is unlikely but has occurred in past trials. I understand. The paperwork took 20 minutes. When it was finished, Daewon had an official participant band around his wrist. The clerk told him the trial would begin at dawn in 5 days. Medical staff would be standing by. He should report to the arena entrance 1 hour before start time. Word spread quickly through the station. By afternoon, everyone seemed to know that a human had accepted Vex's challenge. Daewon walked through the corridors and noticed aliens staring at him. Some looked curious. Others looked amused. A few looked worried. The human population on the station was small, maybe 200 people. Several of them stopped him to ask if he was serious. Some told him he was brave. Others said he was foolish. One older woman simply said, "Make us proud." Vex made sure to cross paths with Daewon that evening. The Krell was leaving the station gym when Daewon arrived. The massive creature stopped and looked down at him. So the soft skin has courage at least. Foolish courage, but courage, Daewon met his eyes calmly. We will see. I have fought in 16 wars, Vex said. I have killed enemies that would terrify you. You are a cargo hauler who thinks he can play warrior. The Krell leaned closer. I will break you quickly. It will be merciful. Maybe, Daewon said. Or maybe you will learn something. Vex laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. I look forward to teaching you the difference between prey and predator. He walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Daewon entered the gym and found a quiet corner. He did not train for strength. Instead, he stretched, checked his flexibility, and practiced breathing exercises. His body was not designed for short, brutal fights. But humans had other advantages. He just needed to remember how to use them. That night, Hana brought him files on Krell biology. They sat in his temporary quarters and reviewed everything. The information was dense and technical, but certain facts stood out. Krell were ambush predators. They were built for explosive power and short engagements. Their muscles generated intense heat during exertion. Their bodies were efficient at short bursts but poor at cooling during extended activity. They overheat, Daewon said, reading the data carefully. Eventually, yes, but it would take hours of continuous activity. Hana looked doubtful. You would have to survive that long first. Daewon nodded slowly. A plan was forming in his mind, but it was risky. Everything would depend on patience and precision. He would only get one chance to make it work. Daewon spent the next 3 days learning everything he could about the arena and his enemy. Sleep came in short intervals. His mind was constantly working through scenarios and possibilities. Hana brought him more research files each evening. Taemin provided access to arena schematics and historical data. Others helped in smaller ways. A maintenance worker named Jiwon knocked on his door the second morning. She was in her 50s with calloused hands and a practical manner. "Heard you're fighting the Krell," she said without preamble. "I maintain the biodome systems. Thought you might want to know the layout better than what the official maps show." Daewon invited her in. Jiwon spread detailed schematics across his table. "The jungle is divided into zones. North section has the densest vegetation. South has more open areas with rocky terrain. East side has water features. 3 streams that feed into a central pond. West side has caves and cliff faces. Temperature variations?" Daewon asked. "Central area stays warmest. Near the water sources, it is cooler. The caves maintain a constant temperature about 5 degrees below the average." Jiwon pointed to specific locations. Day cycle peaks at 32 degrees. Night drops to 24. Daewon studied the maps carefully. Heat was important. If Vex overheated, he would instinctively avoid water to maintain his pride and aggression. That could be useful. What about materials available in the arena? Standard jungle biodome. Bamboo-like plants in the north. Good for making poles or cordage if you strip the fibers. Vines throughout. Rocks of various sizes. Clay near the streams. Nothing metal or processed. "Thank you," Daewon said sincerely. "This helps significantly." Jiwon nodded and stood to leave. At the door, she paused. "My son asked me why humans deserve respect if we are not as strong as other species. I did not have a good answer. Maybe you can give him one." After she left, Daewon continued studying the maps. He marked potential locations for retreat. Areas where terrain would favor a smaller fighter. Places where he could rest briefly. His military training had included survival in hostile environments. One of his instructors had been obsessed with old techniques, including something called persistence hunting. The concept was simple. Early humans had not been able to outrun their prey over short distances, but they could run longer than almost anything else. They would track an animal for hours, sometimes days, never letting it rest. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. The human would then make the kill. Modern humans had lost most of that endurance through comfortable living. But Daewon had trained in military programs designed to push people to their limits. He knew his body could keep moving long after his mind wanted to stop. The question was whether he could make Vex chase him long enough. Hana brought more detailed biological data on the 3rd day. She looked tired. "I contacted every xenobiologist I know. Some of this information is from Krell themselves, translated texts about their warrior culture." Daewon read through the files. Krell society valued direct confrontation. Running from a fight was considered shameful. Their warriors trained to overwhelm opponents quickly. Extended battles were seen as signs of weakness. "They have no concept of strategic retreat," he said aloud. "No, in their culture, a warrior who runs is no warrior at all." Hana pulled up video footage of Krell training exercises. "Watch how they move. Everything is forward momentum. They do not circle or feint. They close distance and dominate through power." Daewon watched several videos. Vex appeared in some of them. The pattern was consistent. Rush forward, strike hard, overwhelm before the enemy could react. It was effective against most opponents, but it required tremendous energy. What happens if they cannot overwhelm quickly? Frustration, anger, they push harder, burn more energy. Hana looked at her brother carefully. "You are planning something that will make him chase you." "I am planning to survive," Daewon corrected. "If that makes him angry, it is a side effect." The next 2 days were spent in physical preparation. Daewon did not lift weights or practice striking. Instead, he ran. He used the station's maintenance corridors, running up and down stairs through narrow passages, building his cardiovascular endurance. He practiced moving silently, placing his feet carefully. He worked on his breathing, learning to control his heart rate even during exertion. In the evenings, he practiced with materials similar to what he would find in the arena. He learned to braid plant fibers into strong cordage. He practiced making simple tools, a digging stick, a wedge, a lever. His hands developed new calluses. His mind developed a map of possibilities. Taemin visited on the 4th evening. "Betting pools have formed. You are listed at 100 to 1 odds. Most aliens think you will not last 10 minutes. What do humans think? Daewon asked. They are worried, but they are also hoping. You have become a symbol of something, whether you wanted to or not. Taemin sat down heavily. There are 237 humans on this station. Most of them face discrimination daily. Small things, usually. Being passed over for jobs, being treated as less capable, being dismissed in conversations. If you lose badly, it will get worse. I understand the pressure, Daewon said quietly. Do you? Because I am not sure you understand what it means to the rest of us. Taemin leaned forward. We are not asking you to win. We are asking you to show them we are not prey, that we belong here. Can you do that? Daewon met his eyes. I will not quit. That much I promise. On the 5th morning before dawn, Hana came to his quarters one last time. She brought a small pack with water containers and high-energy food bars. These are allowed under the rules. Stay hydrated. The heat will be your ally if you can manage it better than him. I know. Daewon. She put her hand on his arm. You do not have to prove anything. Not to me, not to anyone. Yes, I do, he said gently. Not for pride. For possibility. So that the next human who comes here is judged on their own merit, not on assumptions about weakness. Hana hugged him tightly. Then make him work for it. Make him remember that humans do not break easily. An hour before dawn, Daewon reported to the arena entrance. Medical staff scanned him and confirmed he carried nothing prohibited. A guide led him through access tunnels to his starting position on the eastern edge of the biodome. Through the transparent wall, he could see the jungle. It looked dense and humid, exactly as the maps had shown. On the opposite side, 50 kilometers away, Vex would be entering his own starting position. The Krell would be confident, probably eager. He would expect a quick victory. Daewon adjusted the straps on his small pack and stretched his legs one final time. The guide gave him final instructions. When the light turned green, the door would open. The trial would begin. Daewon took slow, measured breaths. His heartbeat was steady. His mind was clear. He thought about his sister's research and Jiwon's maps and Taemin's concern. He thought about every human on the station who would be watching. But mostly he thought about the simple truth that had kept humans alive for hundreds of thousands of years. They did not have to be the strongest. They just had to refuse to stop. The light turned green. The door opened. Daewon stepped into the jungle. The jungle was thick with humidity. Daewon felt it immediately against his skin, warm and heavy. Artificial sunlight filtered through the canopy above, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. He moved away from the entrance quickly but not frantically. Running blindly would waste energy. He needed to be deliberate. Thousands of beings watched from observation decks surrounding the biodome. Cameras tracked movement throughout the arena. Somewhere in that crowd, Hana and Taemin were watching. Daewon pushed the thought aside. They did not matter right now. Only the terrain, the environment, and the enemy mattered. He followed a game trail northward, moving toward the denser vegetation. His footsteps were careful, avoiding dry branches and loose rocks. The air smelled like earth and green growing things. Insects buzzed around him. Some were real, part of the biodome ecosystem. Others were micro-drones providing camera coverage. He ignored them. 20 minutes into the trial, he heard the first sound of his enemy. A roar echoed through the jungle, distant but clear. Vex was announcing his presence, challenging his prey to face him. Daewon kept moving. He found a stream and followed it east, using the water to mask his tracks in several places. The sound of running water would also cover small noises he might make. He spent the next hour setting up his first position, a large tree with thick roots near a ravine. Daewon cut bamboo-like stalks and stripped fibers, working quickly but carefully. He braided cordage and tested its strength. Good enough, he rigged a simple swing line across the ravine, anchoring it firmly to trees on both sides. Then he settled in to wait. Vex was hunting him. The Krell was not subtle. Daewon could hear him moving through the jungle, crashing through undergrowth, destroying anything in his path. The sounds grew closer. Daewon controlled his breathing and stayed motionless behind the tree roots. His heart rate was elevated but manageable. He counted seconds, estimating distance by sound. The Krell appeared suddenly, moving fast despite his size. Vex's yellow eyes scanned the forest. His nostrils flared, trying to catch a scent. Daewon remained frozen. The wind was in his favor, blowing his scent away from the predator. Vex stood still for a long moment, then roared in frustration and moved on, heading north. Daewon waited 5 full minutes after the sounds faded. Then he moved south, circling around. He found another position near rocky terrain and prepared a second backup. More cordage, this time fashioned into a simple snare. He disguised it with leaves and continued moving. The trial entered its second hour. The artificial sun climbed higher. Temperature increased. Daewon drank water sparingly and kept moving. He could hear Vex in the distance, still hunting aggressively. The Krell's roars came more frequently now, signs of growing frustration. Good. Anger made people careless. The first direct encounter happened near midday. Daewon was crossing a rocky area when Vex appeared on a ridge above him. The Krell's eyes locked onto him immediately. "There you are, soft skin. Done running?" Daewon did not answer. He moved quickly toward the ravine where he had set up the swing line hours earlier. Behind him, he heard Vex leap down from the ridge and give chase. The Krell was fast, terrifyingly fast. His clawed feet tore into the ground with each stride. Daewon ran hard, using every bit of speed he had. He reached the ravine with seconds to spare. Without hesitation, he grabbed the swing line and launched himself across. The rope held. He landed on the far side and immediately cut the anchoring knot. The line fell away just as Vex reached the edge. The Krell roared in fury and looked for another way across. Daewon disappeared into the dense vegetation on the other side. The chase continued. Daewon led Vex through difficult terrain, areas where the larger creature had to force his way through obstacles that Daewon could slip past. Every time Vex got close, Daewon used a prepared position to create distance. A loose rope that tangled the Krell's legs briefly. A pile of rocks that collapsed and forced him to climb over. Nothing that would seriously harm his opponent, but everything that would slow him down and burn his energy. Hours passed. The sun reached its peak and began descending. Daewon's legs ached from constant movement. His lungs burned. But he kept his pace steady, never sprinting unless absolutely necessary, never stopping for more than a few minutes. He drank water at every stream he crossed. He ate small amounts of food to maintain his energy. Vex showed signs of fatigue. His movements were still powerful but slightly slower than before. His roars came less frequently. When Daewon glimpsed him through the trees, he could see the Krell's scales glistening with moisture. Not sweat like humans produced, but a similar cooling response. The problem was that Krell bodies were not efficient at cooling. Their armor-like scales trapped heat. Their massive muscles generated tremendous thermal energy during exertion. Daewon led him toward the southern area, away from water sources. The terrain was more open here, rocky and exposed to direct sunlight. Vex followed, driven by pride and anger. The Krell could not accept that his prey refused to fight directly. Every time Daewon evaded him, it was an insult to his warrior culture. "Face me, coward," Vex bellowed. "Stop running and fight." Daewon ignored the challenge. He circled through rocky terrain, using boulders for cover, making Vex work for every meter of pursuit. The Krell smashed through obstacles, expending massive amounts of energy. His breathing was labored now, coming in heavy gasps. Late afternoon arrived. They had been in the arena for 8 hours. Daewon was exhausted but functional. His human body, evolved for endurance, kept moving through sheer will. His mind remained focused despite the fatigue. He knew every meter of terrain now, every possible escape route, every defendable position. Vex was overheating. Daewon could see it in the way he moved. The explosive speed was gone. The Krell's steps were heavy and deliberate. His scales had taken on a darker shade, a sign of thermal stress. When he roared now, it sounded more like desperation than rage. But he was still dangerous. Daewon knew that getting close would be fatal. The Krell still had enough strength to kill him with one strike. He needed Vex completely exhausted, not just tired. He needed the Predator's body to shut down entirely. Daewon made his move as the sun began to set. He led Vex to a clearing near the cliff faces on the western edge. The area had multiple escape routes but also limited cover. He stopped at the edge of the clearing and turned to face his pursuer. For the first time since the trial began, he did not run. Vex emerged from the tree line, breathing heavily. His yellow eyes narrowed when he saw Daewon standing still. "Finally, you will face me." "I have been facing you all day," Daewon said calmly. His voice was hoarse from exertion but steady. "You just did not recognize what fighting looks like for humans." Vex snarled and charged forward. But his charge was slow compared to the morning. His body was depleted, overheated, pushed beyond its efficient operating limits. Daewon waited until the last moment, then dodged to the side. He had prepared for this. A snare trap, hidden in the grass, caught Vex's leading foot. The Krell stumbled, but did not fall. He tore through the snare with brute strength and swung a massive arm at Daewon. The blow connected partially, sending Daewon tumbling across the ground. Pain exploded in his ribs. He rolled with the impact and came up several meters away, gasping. Vex advanced, but his movements were sluggish. Daewon backed away, staying just out of reach. The Krell tried to close the distance, but his legs were trembling. His body was shutting down, overwhelmed by heat and exhaustion. Still, he refused to surrender. Pride kept him moving forward. Daewon knew the end was close. He just needed to survive a little longer. The artificial sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Daewon circled around Vex slowly, maintaining distance. His ribs throbbed where the Krell's blow had connected, probably cracked, maybe broken. Each breath sent sharp pain through his chest. But he could still move, still think, still fight. Vex turned to follow him, his movements heavy and uncoordinated. The Krell's breathing came in harsh rasps. His scales had lost their shine, appearing dull and dark. Heat radiated from his body in visible waves. His yellow eyes struggled to focus. But even exhausted and overheated, he remained a deadly threat. One solid hit could end the fight. You cannot win by running. Forever, Vex managed between breaths. His voice was rough, strained. "I am not trying to win," Daewon replied quietly. "I am just not losing." He led Vex in a slow circle around the clearing. The Krell followed, driven by pride and warrior instinct that would not allow surrender. Each step seemed to cost him enormous effort. His claws scraped against rocks as he moved. Twice he stumbled slightly before catching himself. Daewon was exhausted too. His legs felt like lead. His lungs burned with every breath. Sweat soaked his clothing, but he had been managing his energy all day, while Vex had been burning through his reserves with explosive power and constant aggression. The difference was now obvious. As darkness began to fall, Vex made one final attempt. He summoned his remaining strength and lunged forward, claws extended, but his body could not deliver what his pride demanded. The lunge was slow and uncoordinated. Daewon sidestepped and watched as the Krell stumbled past him. Vex tried to turn, but his legs gave out. He crashed to his knees, breathing in huge, gasping breaths. His body trembled with the effort of staying conscious. Still, he tried to rise. His pride would not allow him to quit. He pushed himself up onto his feet through sheer determination. Daewon knew this was the moment. The Krell was defeated but would never surrender voluntarily. He needed to be stopped before his body suffered permanent damage from heat exhaustion. Daewon moved quickly, circling behind Vex while the larger creature was off balance. He used a technique from his military training, not designed for direct combat but for controlling dangerous situations. He kicked the back of Vex's knee at the joint. The Krell's leg collapsed. As Vex fell backward, Daewon used the creature's own weight and momentum against him. He positioned himself and let Vex's mass fall into a controlled collapse. The Krell hit the ground hard. Before he could recover, Daewon was on him. He used pre-positioned cordage that he had hidden near this clearing hours earlier. Working quickly, he wrapped the rope around Vex's legs, using the Krell's own exhaustion against him. A large rock served as an anchor point. More cordage around the arms, pinning them at awkward angles. Vex struggled, but his strength was gone. His overheated body could not respond to his commands. Daewon positioned his own body weight strategically, using leverage instead of strength. He pressed down on key points, making it impossible for Vex to rise even if he found the energy. "Surrender," Daewon said quietly. His voice was calm despite his exhaustion. "Your body cannot continue. You will cause permanent damage." "Never," Vex gasped. "A warrior does not surrender. A warrior survives to fight another day, Day One replied. There is no shame in recognizing when your body has reached its limit. Vex tried to break free one more time. His muscles tensed, but nothing happened. He had no energy left. His body temperature had risen to dangerous levels. His breathing was shallow and rapid. Day One could see the moment when consciousness began to slip away from his opponent's eyes. Medical team, Day One called out, knowing the cameras and monitors were recording everything. He needs cooling treatment immediately. Vex's eyes closed. His body went limp, shut down by heat exhaustion and complete energy depletion. Day One maintained his position, keeping the Krell secured until medical personnel arrived. It took less than 2 minutes. The medical team consisted of several species, including a Quellan doctor, who immediately scanned Vex. Severe hyperthermia, the doctor announced. His core temperature is critical. We need to transport him now. They brought a specialized stretcher designed for large species. It took 4 medical staff to lift Vex onto it. Cooling packs were applied to his body. An IV line was inserted to provide fluids. They moved quickly, taking him out through a medical access tunnel. Another medical technician approached Day One. You need examination too. You have sustained injuries, Day One nodded. He let them help him to his feet. His ribs screamed in protest. Now that the adrenaline was fading, he could feel every ache and pain. His legs shook with exhaustion. But he walked out of the arena on his own feet while Vex had been carried out on a stretcher. The observation deck was completely silent when Day One emerged. Thousands of aliens stared at him. Their expressions ranged from shock to disbelief to confusion. No one seemed to know what to say. A human had defeated a Krell warrior, something that should have been impossible. Hana pushed through the crowd and embraced him carefully, mindful of his injuries. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. Taman arrived moments later with several security officers. The station administrator wants to speak with you, but medical treatment first. Those ribs need attention. The medical center was busy with activity around Vex. Day One could see through a window into the treatment room. The Krell was unconscious but stable. Cooling treatments had brought his temperature down to safer levels. Doctors worked on him efficiently. He would recover fully, though it would take several days. Day One was taken to a separate examination room. His ribs were indeed cracked, 3 of them. They wrapped his chest tightly and gave him medication for pain. He had minor lacerations, bruises, and signs of heat stress, but nothing serious. His body had held together. The Quellan administrator, Ilsa, arrived while doctors were finishing their work. Her crystalline eyes regarded Day One with new interest. That was remarkable. The council needs to make an official statement. You have won the trial fairly. I did not win, Day One said quietly. Vex's own body defeated him. I just made him work until it happened. That is victory, Ilsa replied. Perhaps not the kind most species recognize, but victory nonetheless. News of the trial spread through the station rapidly. By the time Day One returned to his quarters, thousands of messages were waiting. Most were from humans expressing pride and relief, but there were also messages from other species. Some congratulated him. Others asked questions about human capabilities. The narrative about humans being weak prey species had been shattered. Day One slept for 12 hours. When he woke, his body was stiff and sore, but the pain was manageable. Hana brought him food and updated him on the situation. Vex is recovering. He asked to speak with you. They went to the medical center together. Vex was in a recovery room, his massive form lying on a specialized bed. Monitors tracked his vital signs. He looked diminished somehow, not in size but in presence. When Day One entered, the Krell's yellow eyes focused on him. You fought well, Vex said. His voice was weak but sincere. I did not understand what kind of warrior you were. I am not a warrior, Day One replied. I am a freight hauler who learned to survive. That is what makes humans dangerous, Vex said slowly. You do not fight like predators. You fight like something that refuses to die. It is effective. Will this change how Krell view humans? Day One asked. Vex was quiet for a moment. I cannot speak for my species, but it has changed how I view humans. Your kind does not have claws or armor, but you have something else. Time. Patience. The ability to keep moving when everything says to stop. These are weapons too. I did not recognize them until too late. They talked for a few more minutes, a conversation between warriors who had tested each other and found unexpected respect. When Day One left, he felt that something had shifted. Not everything, but something. 3 days later, Daewon prepared to leave the station. His cargo ship was loaded with new freight bound for the inner colonies. Hana and Taemin came to see him off. The docking bay was busy with usual activity, but several people stopped to nod respectfully at Daewon as he passed. "You know you are famous now," Taemin said. "The recording of your trial has been viewed millions of times across the galaxy." "I am a freight hauler," Daewon replied. "That has not changed. Maybe not. But how others see humans has changed." Taemin smiled slightly. "The Council has fast-tracked several integration proposals. Species that dismissed us before are suddenly interested in trade agreements and cultural exchanges." Hana hugged her brother carefully. "You showed them we belong here, not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we do not quit." Daewon boarded his ship and settled into the pilot's seat. The controls felt familiar and comfortable after everything that had happened. As the docking clamps released and he guided the ship away from the station, he thought about Vex's words. Humans had time, patience, and refusal to stop. Those were their weapons. The freight routes called him back to simple work and quiet days. But he knew that somewhere in the galaxy, humans were being viewed differently now. Not as prey species that got lucky, not as soft skins who did not belong, but as something that deserved respect. That was enough.